Morning, folks. Let's get tuned in here right, right, right this morning. Good morning, folks and fans of Magic the Gathering. Those who love the game as much as we do, thanks again for tuning in. Around the world, wherever you are, whether you're in Boston, Las Vegas, maybe you're coming in from Connecticut, Kentucky, maybe you're coming in from across the pond over in the Netherlands. Perhaps you're joining us from somewhere close by or someplace far, far away. Whatever the case may be, I want to thank you folks for tuning in this morning, wherever you are and wherever you've got Brody with you here this morning. Whether you got me in the back seat of the car, maybe next to the coffee pot, perhaps you've got Brody dangling from the rear view mirror on your way to work. I want to thank you folks for tuning in. You're a fan of the Magic the Gathering, and you're a friend of mine. Nice to be here on a Wednesday, the hump day, the middle of the week. I was looking around here last night. It looks like I lost an electron. I've got to keep an eye on it more closely. Just like I got to keep an eye on my cup of coffee. All right. What did the letters say to the celery? Quit stalking me. And if you're liking the show so far, hit the like button, subscribe. We're going to have a little fun here this morning. Do you like tracking the prices of Magic cards? Is there enough information out there, or perhaps there's just too much gall darn information? Let me do it for you. I'm doing it here on the morning show in the weekdays before you get set to go to work. It's the working man for the working man, doing the best that I can to bring you folks some Magic the Gathering news. Spoiler season, right? Spoilers are always in season, and that makes me think of all the potential upside in some recently printed Magic the Gathering cards that have been under the radar. I do like spoiler season. Not necessarily because I'm going to end up buying new cards, but I like to see what moves in the world of Magic the Gathering during shakers, movers, and shakers and spoiler season, because this is when the big brains come out. That's right. People trying to break existing formats, break existing Magic cards, and put some spice into their deck. But if you like sugar and spice and everything nice, well, you've come to the right place. Come for the Magic the Gathering content. Stay for the spicy discussion. All are welcome here. You can join me, leave a comment. We got some folks in the house. Michael Superbacker has got my back here this morning. Thanks, and Cosmic Seeds, thank you for tuning in. It's going to be a good one. All right, let's warm up just a little bit here. Let's get the pipes going here this morning. You know how we do it. We're just going to take a couple trip down memory lane here this morning. Let's look at some AI-generated Magic cards. And you know the rules. Let's warm up with a couple of these. Hopefully we get some good ones. The card's playable anyway whatsoever. Even if it's a little bit overcosted, we're going to pass it. You'll hear this sound. That's the sound of the dinger. Dinging and flinging our way into the end zone here this morning. If the card is no good, no bueno, got gibberish on it, it's non-functional, it's a piece of stinky poo-poo. You hear this sound? That's the sound of the buzzing, cousin. All right, let's go over to Robo Rosewater this morning just to see what we can see here. I'll be back. My phone is dying. All right, little resuscitation for the phonular this morning. Let's just get the mood set here this morning with this card. Drop Tripon. Crisp, beautiful morning here this morning in sunny Florida. I think we're minus 20 there, Twids. It was a chilly one, and I pushed about a foot of snow yesterday. Was a lot of useless labor, but I had to get it done. It's starting to pile up out there. All right, let's have a look-see. look see what's cooksy here this morning with this drop try pawn. This sucker is a 3-1 zombie. 58 here. Nice. All right, let's take a look here this morning. This drop try pawn with flash. It's dropping. Drop it like it's a hot try pawn. Zoom. Zoom. All right, beam me up, Scotty. Beam me up, Twiddler. Let's go. I got myself a 3-1 with flash. You may cast this spell anytime you can play an instant. When drop type pawn dies, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent, and it's got persist. When it dies, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a -1/-1 counter on it. That seems like a regular, good old-fashioned magic card. Doesn't seem too bad. All right. Let's see if we can go 3 for 3 here this one. Bear down, Adept. Aww. Here's a card. This seems kind of cute, actually. Cute and fluffy this morning. Bear down, Adept. Look at the art on this one. All right. Yeah, it's cold out. Oh, I got to tell you, what does a spy do when it's cold out? He goes undercover, right? All right. This Bear down, Adept deals 1 damage to any target. Whenever you cast a spell that has Convoke, Bear down, Adept deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. Whenever you cast a spell with Convoke, Bear down does the damage. So it's a 1-mana pinger. It's a 1-mana Tim, right? This little Bear down. It seems okay. Hey, why not? Let's play it. Slot that into a deck, right? I like it. Fair. Let's give it a vote. I think it's fair. Fair to say. For 1 mana, though, it seems a little bit cheap to play. You know, Prodigal Sorcerer, I think, costs 3, and this does just that. What's brown and sticky? A stick. All right. I heard a rumor about some butter last night, but I'm not going to go spreading it here this morning. The Thep Firevalist. What do we got? Human Druid, 1 blue and 3. 13/13 Vigilance. It's also got this adventure put on it, Dwarven Legion for a Boros, white, red, and 1. Sorcery. Adventure, destroy target creature. It's a controller. Loses 2 life. And Anger Collections is in the house. What's the other half of this card do? All right. Vigilance, reach for the 13/13 for 4 mana. That seems pretty decent. 4 mana for a 13/13, and it's got reach, and then you can pay black and 5. Thep Firevalist gets O2 until end of turn because his butt's not big enough. You need to make it a 13/15, right? Let's pass it. Seems a little cheap to play. Why'd the cookie go to the hospital? Because he felt crummy. Let's go. Fair, underpowered, OP. I'm going to give it an OP simply on the 4 mana cost. An excellent recollection. I think this is where we left off yesterday. A 3 for 3 here this morning. All right, what do you get when you cross a fish with an elephant? You get swimming trunks. That's what you get. Excellent recollection. Recollection for a green and 4. You can't be countered. Taps for a colorless. It's a sorcery that taps for colorless. You get to draw a card and activate it if there's an untapped creature card in your graveyard. Of course, of course. Good morning, Coach. This card we saw yesterday, I think we got to fail it. All right. Why'd the belt get sent to jail? Because he held up a pair of pants. All right, let's fail this sucker here. Get it out of here. It's a little spice here this morning. A little spice, a little nice. Morning, folks. Coach is in the house. Morning, folks. Friends of mine. I got a news article for you here this morning. An interesting one coming to us from the stock desk. Should be a good one. Yesterday, we had a really interesting article from Harvey McGinnis. I'm going to take a little sip of coffee here with you folks, and I like reading these articles here with you in the morning. Best part of my day. Quite generally speaking, I do have to set an alarm here. I'm going to take a little trip down this article here, and then I'm going to take a quick break. I got to be Mr. Alarm Clock here this morning for all you folks tuning in. All right, why did the strawberry cry? Because he found himself in a jam. Unlike you folks who are jamming down memory lane with me here this morning, let's take a look at this article here by Steve Heisler. I've read a couple of articles by Steve Heisler here once already. He's got a decent writing style and some penmanship that we can bring to the show here this morning. Let's take a look here this morning. Magic cards you're overlooking for Commander. What are we overlooking for Commander? Maybe copy Artifact, right? Are we looking for a way to copy the One Ring? Perhaps. What do you think, Anger? What cards are we overlooking in Commander? There's got to be a few of them. You know, a card I looked at yesterday was Burgeoning. What a great green card. I should check to see if it's banned. That's the first thing you want to do is make sure the card's not banned. Sometimes the card looks too good in Commander, so then you got to run over to the Gatherer and make sure that it doesn't have a banning on it. Burgeoning, a pretty decent card for 1 green. I'm trying to put more lands onto the battlefield, and that's one way to do it. But let's see what Steve Heisler's got to say. A shout out to you, Mr. Steve, here this morning. You got to have faith. Dun, dun, dun. Ooh, got to have faith. Welcome back for another History Restapled, a Commander Focus column that attempts to validate a newer card status by a staple, looking at how cards that are similar, synergistic, or competing have fared in the past financially. There's a little respite in 2023 from deluge of previews and announcements to the point where it started feeling like background noise. No wonder the last few silent weeks have felt eerie. Thankfully, Wizards of the Coast is not content to let players luxuriate on the cards that they already own, and preview season of Murders of Karlov Manors is in full swing. More on that as previews continue and prices home in on an appropriate range. All right, in the meantime, here's a few cards from previous sets that are worth revisiting. Let's take a look. Squirming Emergence. Squirming in your seat here this morning. Can't wait to see what this card does. What do we got? Squirming Emergence. Sorcery. Sagolgari. A black, a green, and 1. Fathomless Descent. Return to the battlefield. Target non-land permanent card from your graveyard with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. Return to the battlefield. Target non-land permanent converted mana cost. Okay, less than or equal to the mana permanents in the graveyard. So it's a recursion spell. This thing gets stuff out of the graveyard, and there's no shortage of reanimation spells in Mono Black and Golgari, but Squirming Emergence is the first one to target any non-land permanent and put it right onto the battlefield. This card is also worded in a way that the target counts towards the mana value of what can be returned and considers lands in the yard as well towards that total. Counting. I don't know if I'm going to go to sleep. No coffee yet. All right, let's take a look here. Millmaster, nice to see you. If we have to bankrupt a few LGSs to hone in on the prices, it's all part of doing business. Right? All right, sure, it can be a bit awkward if you like to bring something back from a light graveyard, but later in the game, it's unlikely this card will have no targets. Any graveyard deck with a modicum of mill. How's that for some alliteration for you this morning, Millmaster? A modicum of mill can get around the downside pretty easily. As a dedicated Golgari graveyard player myself, I'm psyched to bring back my Greater Good and Altar of Dementia without searching for my Eternal Witness. They have to cast them, of course. The restrictions on Squirming Emergence will likely keep the card from hitting the price points of other reanimation staples like Reanimate, kicking in at about $14, and Animate Dead at $7. And for a good target for Squirming Emergence, Necromancy at $18, there is much comparison at this point. The closest we've probably got is Conduit of the Worlds and an affordable price of $3.50, which likely represents the ceiling of the immediate future of Squirming Emergence. Not too much more than its current bulk price. It's a rare, and it's a new and more powerful non-land permanents keep getting printed. There's a good chance the stock of this card will continue to rise. All right, what is it sitting at? Cheap like borscht. 50 cents. Just a couple of shekels for this Squirming Emergence. It's never been so cheap to get stuff from the graveyard, and you too can recur stuff from the graveyard with this card. Swarming Emergence, all right. Let's have a little sip of coffee here this morning. Argoth, Sanctum of Nature. The Shire from Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, is a new staple. There exists little difference in most decks between the card and a basic forest, but its other ability can be activated in a pinch. Argoth Sanctum of Nature is virtually similar to the Shire, even though it only comes into play untapped. And if you have a green legendary creature and very low ask in the deck that's the least partially green commander, yes, Argoth mills you, but the annoyance of mill outside the graveyard deck is greatly overblown. So let's take a look. Let's read this. For anybody not familiar, this is a card from the Brothers War. This is a land card. It's green. No, it's colorless, so it taps for green. Argoth, Sanctum of Nature, enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary green creature. Taps for green. So with Anissa, this can be very interesting. 2 green, 2, tap it, create a 2/2 bear with then mill 3 cards. Activate as a sorcery. Well, the mill master in the house. What do you think of this card? Do you like milling? Does this card make the mill deck? Are you going to pay 4 to mill 3 and make a bear token? Kind of seems expensive for a bear token. But if you want to put stuff in the yard, that's not a bad option. Kind of costly. A bit of a mana sink here. Okay, so what are we talking about here? All right. The annoyance of the mill outside the graveyard deck is greatly overblown. I know people get salty over it, but where a card is, even if it's outside the game entirely, then have it buried somewhere in my deck where the chances of drawing it fall victim to a variant, especially in a green deck. Creature tokens in Commander are valuable currency, especially if they're produced off a free roll of a card. Utility, but not efficient. Argoth also has the upside of representing half of a meld card alongside Titania Voice of Gaia, and when assembled, the resulting Titania Gaia Incarnate is a game ender on top of being a heck of a lot of fun to play. And $1.50. Argoth is a steal at this point because, especially when considering the prices of other meld pieces in the past, with Bruna the Fading Light at $4, the card, while the other half, Gisela the Broken Blade, is a whopping 20. Commander players will pay a premium for this kind of effect, so grab an Argoth before it rotates out of standard and prices on it and Titania start inching up. Isn't that funny? How half of a meld card is $4 and the other half is 20? Which you've got the A to the B, it's your A to your B, right? I got a lot of A to B combo pieces. And cards worth revisiting in Commander. Of course, we got Defiler of Vigor and Defiler of Faith. It's a dirty, rotten card, right? What's the Defiler do? 6/6? Pyrexian Worm. Little Rexia for you here this morning. What is a 6/6 Trampley boy? Trampling on. Well, it's $1. What did 50 cents do when he was hungry? 58? All right. And what did the nut say to another nut in the game of tag? I'm a cashew. All right. In addition to the cost to cast green permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost green less to cast if you paid the life this way. This effect doesn't only reduce the amount of green mana that you pay. Whenever you cast a green spell, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Each creature. Stuff gets bigger. Things get bigger. All right, this cycle from Dominaria United was praised way back when the set was released, with many content creators and players ranking the cards in their top 10. All 5 have their uses in monocolored decks. Paying 2 life is pittance compared to the mana you save and all the value you accumulate, but the red and blue defilers are low impact in color, known for instants and sorceries over permanents. The black defiler holds probably the weakest payoff of the bunch. Both Defiler of Vigor and Defiler of Faith slot perfectly into what the green and white color identities are always trying to do: casting permanents, save mana, and go wide. I knew 50 Cent when he was 4 dimes and a nickel. All right. They have a habit of overperforming. Defiler of Vigor is the best of the bunch, boasting a substantial stat line, including trample, and the ability to buff itself in addition to all the mana dorks hanging out. But Defiler of Faith isn't far behind with his tokens and vigilance, not to mention that a single Soul Sister type card, which there are plenty of, recoups at least half of the life that you pay, if not more. So like the life gain decks, yes, the Soul Sister, hey sister, Soul Sisters, the Defiler of Vigor is at a $2.50. Speaking of 50 cent, after declining steadily in price since release, and it will probably stay there for me while there's no urgency to pick up a copy. Defiler of Vigor dominates games and finishes opponents, and is sitting at its all-time low. It's well worth the inclusion in most green decks. A couple of $2 and $3 pickups here coming at us from Heisler's perspective here. Let's read the Defiler of Faith is 5/5 for 5 vigilance. Same type of ability on the card, except it's for white, right? As an additional cost to cast white permanent spells, you pay the 2 life. It reduces by 1 white pip, less than when you paid normally. This effect only reduces the amount of color mana, and whenever a permanent enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 white soldier token. The soldier token. That's what we're talking about with the life gain decks, like the when a creature enters the battlefield, gain life effect. All right. What do you call a hippie's wife? Mississippi. All right, all right, all right. Meanwhile, maybe it's because white has become a cornucopia of great new cards over the last few years. Defiler of Faith is a bulk rare at half the price of Sun Titan. If the closest approximations of Oketra's Monument, and if you squint within an inch of your life, Keeper of the Accord can be $2.50. Surely Defiler of Faith can do better, especially if reprints arrive slowly. Vim and Vigor. Green has always been a favorite color of mine in Magic the Gathering, and I'm psyched to see what the color will pick in 2024. Any green gems that you've discovered that you seem to sail under the radar, and if that's what you think we're far overhyped in 2023, let's go green together and dream of some online forests that are snow covered. Steve Heisler, thanks for another great, amazing article. Writer, pop culture journalist covering comedy, games and television, film, and the tech industry. We should connect with Steve over at the stock desk over on X. Do it. All right. How do you tell the difference between a bull and a cow? It's either one or the other. Give me a moment here. I've got to go. It's wake up time. I got to go rouse the zombies here this morning. Mrs. Alfonso wants me to wake her up at approximately this hour. So give me 1 minute. I'm going to take a short commercial break while we hear back from our sponsors. All right, I'm back, folks. Ha! Brody's up early today, and each and every day to talk shop with you folks and talk stocks. What else do you want to see on the show? I reached out to some folks and some viewers yesterday just to see what they would like to see in the show. Could we add a little bit of this or a little bit of that to the show for you folks? All right, sit down, relax. I want to read another article here from the MTG Rocks table. This is kind of interesting. Or should we Wednesday, the movers? Should we move? Should we shake? All right, let's do it. Let's see what's happening in the world here today on your movers and the shakers list. Over or underappreciated green cards. I'm going to bring one up for you. Before we move too far and take too long. All right, this card here has got me thinking. This seems really good in Commander. This card here, Burgeoning, 1 green enchantment. I got to check the legality on this card because it seems too good to be true. Speaking of underappreciated green cards for Commander, this card, Burgeoning, 1 green mana. So I was looking at putting some more lands onto the battlefield. And of course, there's a card like Exploration, Explore. But this card seems really good. Turn 1 Burgeoning seems okay, especially in a lands deck where you got lots of lands. Whenever you play a land, you may put, whenever an opponent plays a land, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. I think this thing is like underappreciated, especially in Commander. How is the list copy even more? I mean, I guess it's got a redo of the original art. The list copy is $63, which seems insane. I don't know why I wouldn't just go for the original Stronghold, which is the cheapest version of it, or it was also reprinted in a secret layer, holding in at $26. So the reprints are worth more than the OG. You've got it in Conspiracy, Take the Crown, coming in at $31 in the foil version, and $22 for the non-foil Commander 2016 is also $22. But this Stronghold card, I can't understand why the Stronghold version is the cheapest one, but that's the one I'm going to go for. It's got the OG art on it. It looks pretty sweet. I like this card. The plant said, "We will fight the stone with root and stem and seed. We are patient. We will win." Sky Shroud, Myth of the Forest. So this is an underappreciated Commander card as far as I'm concerned. This will go nicely into the new build that I'm putting together to get me some more lands onto the battlefield faster than anyone else. Combine this with a Horn of Greed, right? This could be sick. Versioning, Horn of Greed. Let's see here. Horn of Greed. Oh, no, this is a Horn of Plenty. But that's not... if you're feeling horny, this may be the horn for you. Horn of Plenty or Horn of Greed? Which one do you prefer? Which horn? I like this one. Whenever a player plays a land, that player draws a card. So if you can run Burgeoning and follow it up with this card, sure, your opponent's going to be like, yay, I get to play a land and draw a card. I can't see anybody countering that. I don't. This one has also got a couple of different versions to come from. The Stronghold, right? So you got Burgeoning and Horn of Greed. Couple of great Commander cards here that I think Wrath grows and I am nourished. Volrath. This seems like a decent card combination to put together in a green deck. Horn doesn't work with Burgeoning? Why not? Whenever a player plays a land card, that player draws a card. And then when an opponent plays a land card, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. You think it doesn't work? Doesn't work the way you think it does, Brody? Let's get a rule check on this one. Millmaster is saying this don't work. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. That doesn't count as playing a land. Perhaps. Gonna have to do a rule check on that. Well, let's go to the Gatherer. Did you try it once already? How does Horn of Greed and Burgeoning interact? Rulings. Wow, this is quite interesting. When Burgeoning resolves, you put a land from your hand on the battlefield. You're not playing it normally, so Horn of Greed won't trigger. Oh, okay. Well, thanks for the cautionary tale. That's dumb. It should proc, but it doesn't. All right, that's what we're talking about. Talking about making sure we've got our rules interactions right here this morning. Holy smokes. All right, where are we here? Whopper Wednesday, right? What do you prefer? The big extra? The bacon cheese? Maybe the Whopper? So you got Modern, Monday, Tuesday Pioneer, Wednesday Popper? We're going Popper. All right, let's pop. Ready to pop off here this morning. But sometimes, like what you said before, exploration will work. Play a land, Burgeony, put a land. That's good to know. Ugh, that would have been so much better, right? Nevertheless, I think Horn still could go into a Commander Lands deck. Commander Land's kind of hard to play. Not a lot of. I mean, in Legacy, really easy. You got multiple copies, but in the singleton format of Commander, it's going to be a little tricky. So I'm always looking like Burgeoning thing. To me, Burgeoning seems as good as Exploration there, Millmaster. Just trying to find ways to get more card draw. So the Horn was that was the big bro brain idea this morning. Nevertheless, let's take a look at the movers and the shakers for this week. It's January 24th, 2024. 24th be with you. Ristic study. Big news here in Canada. I don't know if you guys are tuned into the world of news, but we had some big news yesterday, so it's quite an exciting day for us here in Canada. Yes. All right, Ristic study taking at the top of the list here today. This card just keeps going, right? Got my dual brain shirt on. I was so lucky to get into a box opening of Prophecy over at the Dual Brain channel. I never owned this card and I couldn't bring myself to buy it for 40 bucks or 30 bucks where it's been sitting at for some time. But this card is really, really good. Oh yeah, we're celebrating. Yes. Go straight to jail, right? That's where we're at. Straight to jail. Do not pass go. Do not play any magic cards. You're out of here. Uh, Ristic study. This has been dubbed as the most annoying card in the game of Magic: The Gathering. It's a common. It's seen more reprints than Tanya's Got Taxes. This sucker, it wins games. There have been games where this thing, like just on Monday, one of my buddies, my brohams, Sean, played one of these, and I'm holding Force of Vigor. Right, this comes down on the battlefield, and then all of a sudden there's a counterspell fight out, and I'm like, oh, got to get rid of this. But even before I got the Force of Vigor off. I think he drew 4 to 5 cards off of this, and including one off the Force. So it's really hard to deal with, and it's puts your opponent so far ahead, especially in a blue deck or a Grixis deck. This sucker is really good. That goes right up there with Mystic Remora. This sucker draws you a lot of cards. It can be backbreaking, and if you don't deal with it when it comes out right away, it's going to put everybody behind. So the only answer to Ristic Study is either remove it or play a Ristic Study of your own and just try and keep up and play tempo with the other player who has got it. Let's take a look at the chart on this card. In fact, I want to look at the OG version. OG, Enchanting Tales Borderless Confetti Foil, $461. Get out of here. Recent reprint. This is the anime confetti foil. Holy the confettirolis. This is disgusting. I just this bothers me. I don't know why I'm triggered here this morning. I can't stand it when I see these like new prints just coming straight out the chute from Wizards shoot straight to your hand for a mere $461. That's right. We're just reprinting equity off the top of our heads. I mean, sure, we like the anime art, but this is insanity. $461. It's almost like these $1,000 Ragavans that were just hot off the print. The ink hasn't even dried on this Ristic study, and it's $461. Little Lorcana reference there, right? And then like the ink hasn't even dried on those promo Ragavans, and they're already getting sold for $1,000. You won't catch me spending my hard-earned money on something like this. I'll just get the original version. Does just the same thing, but holy smokes, what's this tuning in at? This thing is being going west to east, right? I got my demographics mixed up yesterday. West to east, moving west to east slowly, humming in and around. What was the breakout price on this? 500? 600. 626 simoleons. I'll just get a beta copy artifact, right? Holy moly. All right. So you want to be the big swinger at the table, then you get this version. You want to be just like a bro and get the cheaper version. What there's plenty of them to go around. I can't believe there's so many of them. But you want the borderless confetti foils? I guess if this is a lesson to anybody speculating on secret layers coming out, look for the classic reprint staples with confetti foiling and in an anime art. What do we got here for the cheapest one for Prophecy? Prophecy is $40. That's the one I have. OG Prophecy. And then the Jumpstart ones. See, here's another example where every single reprint is worth more than the original, including the one off the list in a mystery booster. Kind of disgusting, but this card's been stable. Not a lot of volatility in this in the Ristic study world. We've got a little bit of jump up in price in and around Strixhaven. Of course, this card's going to be good. And for a long time, it's not going anywhere. I think there's people who complain about this card online saying that, it shouldn't be allowed in Commander because it's just like too much card draw, or like you can't play in our play group if you play the Ristic study. But this seems fine. Ristic study at the top of the pile. All right, let's go to let's see what's next on the Let's see what's next on here. Here's a card, Oubliette. I think this just seen a reprint. It's from Arabian Nights. There's two different arts on it. Let's see what's the difference between A and B. Ah, yes. If you're not familiar with the A and the B, let's take a look right here. It's the mana symbol that makes one an A or a B. It's the color of the one mana symbol. Where's the B? Here's the B. From the A to the B to the CIO. Whenever Oubliette enters the battlefield, target creature phases out until end of turn. Oh no, until Oubliette leaves the battlefield. Tap that creature as it phases in this way, or as an equipment's phase with it. While permanents are phased out, they treat it as though they don't exist. So this is a little less wordy than the original. Okay, this is something that got reprinted. They errated it just to stay straight up phasing. It's black, it's removal. It's like an Oblivion Ring, but it only does a creature. It's an enchantment. There's plenty of enchantments that do it, especially in white. But this one here, it does great things. It's not very playable. It's not a great card, but I'll take it. From the Arabian Nights, you're collecting sets. This is a card you're going to need to get. It's $30. Saw a reprint, not a whole lot of price action here, but it's Pauper we're talking about, right? Is the common print? What was it printed in these other versions? Double Masters. Let's see. Here's some more. Oh, uncommon. So it was upshifted. A little different art. This guy's reaching through the bottom of the cage, and this one here costs you only a mere $1.81. So upshift into uncommon. Look at this chart here. Not super friendly. Okay, let's oublier about that one. Let's forget about it. Standard Bearer. Here's a card we saw last week. This card has seen some action, making it onto our movers and the shakers here twice in 2 weeks. While opponent is choosing targets as part of casting a spell they control or activating an ability they control, that player must choose at least one flag bearer on the battlefield. So this is almost reminds me of Spellskite in a way. It gives yourself an extra target, right? So perfect segue for talking about its good flavor. The channel Ristic study. Oh, did a video on oubliette. So perfect segue. It's good flavor. Let's take a look at this chart on this one. Wow, flag bearer, eh? A little bit of a spike up to $2. Look at this. Almost looks like a hockey stick going up and to the right. It did see a price spike. How high did it go once before in 2018? 50 cents all the way to $10. And now down to the 50-cent mark and then back up to the $2.50 version. How much is a foil? Apocalypse foil. $8. Let's see here. I actually think that the Apocalypse foil wouldn't be too bad. And I'll show you why. All right. So stock symbols. Let's talk about stocks. Let's talk about stock symbol. All right. We were doing some chart reading. We want to look at these charts and see. I think this flag bearer is getting set for a breakout. All right. And I'll tell you what I mean for that. A breakout on the foil side. It hasn't really moved. It's been sitting around $8 to $10. So if it's let's just take a look at some stock symbols to the day to go with our coffee here this morning. So we talked about pennants the other day. We talked about cup and handle. Good morning. We talked about pennants. We talked about cups and handles. Let's get another stock chart pattern under our belt here this morning. Symmetrical triangles. Let's talk about triangles. Why did the triangle get in a fight with a circle? Because he said that he was obtuse. All right, symmetrical triangle. So when we're looking at these stock charts, any stock chart, let's put some lines on charts. That's what Brody's here for. We want to put some lines on charts. I like this. This is very triangular. I mean, we could stretch this out to here. And I mean, I would suggest that you draw your own patterns. That's what I started doing. Try and recognize some patterns, right? Like this looks triangular, does it not? Now, necessarily, you kind of want to see if you're looking at a stock or a crypto, you kind of want to see some compression where the stock is sort of trading in and around this way, where it sort of looks like it's bouncing off the top of a ceiling and then getting compressed downward, right? This thing could get pressed and pressed and pressed and putting pressure on sellers, right? As it's moving left to right. So let's look at the symmetrical triangle. For symmetrical triangles, two trend lines start to meet, which signifies a breakout in either direction. The support line is drawn with an upward trend, and the resistance line is drawn with a downward trend. So the support is underneath it, That's what we've got here. This is your support line. So it's the line that it just keeps showing that people will still keep buying that stock, card, or commodity, right? The support line on the bottom. So even though the price goes down, then people will pick it up and that'll keep the price from falling too much lower. And then the resistance line always at the top, putting downward pressure. That's people selling. It gets to a certain point, and then you're like, okay, I got to sell this because it's getting too high. But where those start to meet in the middle, and we get what's called a convergence, even though the breakout can happen in either direction, it often follows the general trend of the market. So if this has been trending in one way or another, it was generally trending up, according to this advice, it will keep trending up. And if it's generally trending down, then we have what's called a breakout to the bottom side, and this is a downside breakout. Price protection height of the triangle. Hello, Johan Matuzzi. Nice to see you. We're talking about stock symbols here this morning. We're taking a look at the popper and the movers and the shakers. We're just looking at some shapes. This is a pennant we discovered yesterday. Pennants represented by two lines that meet at a set point. They're often formed in a strongward upward pattern or downward moves where traders pause the price and consolidation before the trend continues in the same direction. So what's the difference between a symmetrical triangle and a pennant? And we'd also talked about flags. All good, guys? Yeah, everything's good. I think people are back to buying Magic. In fact, we're just discussing which cards to buy. I myself picked up a copy. I ordered a copy of Burgeoning from Stronghold. I think this is an interesting card. The Flag Bearer. The foil version's at $8. We're just looking at the chart on it to see like where is this thing gonna go. If you look back, we saw a breakout here in 2018 where Ixalan went, and then like now it's now it's definitely seen some price action. The foil version hasn't had as much price action as the non-foil version, but look at this sucker go. This thing has been just like swooping down for quite some time. So like maybe a cheap speculation for cards, and see it just break out to the upside here. It could be a cheap speculation to pick up one foil copy of this for $8 from Nemesis. If we catch a foil multiplier off the flag bearer, I could see it's because it's in the popper format. I could see it getting a sweet, sweet tick up. Completing some showcase sets. I dig it. Nice. All right, what else we got? Ancient Den. Is this the artifact land? It is. It is. I think these were banned in Legacy. They were just too good. Right? Mirrodin block reprint. This is the list version. $5.50 for this artifact land at common. Beautiful morning to you, Gaming Bob. Thank you for joining. Nice to see you, buddy. We're discussing popper cards here and looking at some of these reprints. Can you believe it that a card like Rhystic Study, which was printed originally in common and now has a confetti foil in Secret Lair worth $461? Also looking at the Flag Bearer that's pumped up from 50 cents to $2.50. The foil multiplier still hasn't kicked in. We might see how many of the, is there any for sale of the Flag Bearer? Any foils for sale? Let's take a look and see. Because that's the other thing too about these charts. You can look to see if the price is nice. But then if there's none available, then this chart might not be okay. So here, this is where we have a disparity. This chart is telling us that the flag bearer in foil is $8.69. But if you go over to Card Kingdom, it's $18.99. I guess you can find it in the medium range. There's enough eBay listings to keep the price down. But this one here seems to have a pretty decent foil multiplier if you're getting a copy of it from Card Kingdom. Good morning, Moxman. Hot Dice and the Moxman showing up this morning. Good morning to you as well. Flag bearer here. So the foil premiums continue to be a thing. In this case, the chart is wrong. It's saying $8.69. But if you want to buy it from the store, it's going to cost you almost $10 more than that. So this definitely does have a foil premium on it, even though the chart says it hasn't really moved. Good morning, Moxie. How are you doing? Johan's here. You like the old school foils? I do too. I do love the old school foils, but like this kind of drives me wild when I see, like I said, a card like Ristic Study, the original one from Prophecy at $40, and then like a brand new printing in Secret Lair, confetti foil costing $461. It just drives me wild. In a case like that, I'm almost interested in getting the original, the OG, just like Burgeoning from Stronghold. I'll pick up a copy of that rather than the reprint because the original one's actually cheaper. Kind of a nice touch there. I do like it when the original one is a little cheaper, so I can get that into my collection and start using it, see how I like it, rather than going out and buying a foil copy of a reprint that costs 2 to 3 times more. So sometimes you can kind of get lucky like that. You'd think that the older the cards are, the more they're going to be worth. But surprisingly, I mean, it shows what I know. I don't know much about Magic cards apparently because the reprints are commanding an incredible price, especially if you put some anime art on it and some foiling. The OG for me, right? You take the OG. I don't want new old school foils. I don't want new old school foils, right? Who wants new old school foilers? Okay, well, this is another example of a card that's been reprinted. It's an Ancient Den. These are the artifact lands, and if you remember from the Mirrodin block, these were so good, especially in Legacy, that they had to ban them, right? Let's take a look. This Time Spiral Remastered has been using it. $5.91 is where it was reprinted and time shifted. So that's seen a reprint plenty of times. Where's the original Mirrodin sitting at? Original Mirrodin, $4.07. So another instance in where the original foil and the original Mirrodin are kind of the laggers in this card. They're the kind of the lagging types of printings, right? And the new, even though is it still banned in Legacy? It better be. Oh no, it's legal in Legacy, banned in Modern. Okay, that's where it was banned simply because of affinity. Long-term value has to be determined to give them 10 to 20 years, and then we will have a better value understanding. Oh, anime. Anime art is new to MTG. Long-term value has yet to be determined. That's a good point. I think people like the anime simply because, well, it's just a little different, right? Little different. That's okay. So people like the different printings, right? Price discovery. I guess we will see. That's a good point. It may take 10 to 20 years to see how that flushes out. Is $461 for a confetti foil realistic? Kind of hard to say. Let's look at the chart on the Ancient Den here, okay? I want to bring it up for you folks here this morning. Let's take a look and see if we got any type of pattern evolving. Now, again, this is a Secret Lair printing. Look at this. Holy smokes. This thing's like a little bit of a roller coaster ride, hey? Isn't it? Let's take a look here. We've got small pencil. Brody just wants to draw lines on charts. Around the $6 mark, this sucker has been going west to east for quite some time, only seen a tick up in price. What's moving the artifact lands? Tell me, folks. This thing is now $6. It's about to kind of reach a new all-time high. If it goes any higher, that's going to be a new all-time high for this version of the list. Let's take a look at the original from Mirrodin, and then we'll maybe even take a look at the foil version here. Card that was so good it had to be banned in Modern, right? Because of affinity. It would just give you like double mana, right? What's bringing this card back? The original? Oh, the sucker's buying the art of the art. Also, they're making a concerted effort to remove feminine forms from their card art. So if you want a waifu on your MTG card, you must pay the waifu tax. Okay. That's kind of funny. Ancient Den. Suckers buy and FOMO smart money is in the spread over the time when you think the value is right for you. Bob says the same thing goes for Lorcana, but as far as financial value, the game needs to survive 10 years before making a call in it. I'm still bullish, though. Lorcana being increasingly difficult to get. In fact, some stores that I went to are waiting for a restock, and the ones that brought it back in, the price ticked up to about $10 Canadian a pack. So that's a thing. All right, so we're looking at the Ancient Den. This is going to definitely. What decks are using it? Pauper, Jeskai Affinity, right? Affinity Pauper, Pauper Affinity. That's where this is played. Too good for Modern Affinity because it essentially taps for mana and then gives you another mana for Affinity. But Pauper is okay. If you like playing Affinity, you got to play it in Pauper. Commander's also playing it. I guess that's pretty cool because Urza Chief Artificer, or Urza Lord High, it's an artifact, so then it can tap for blue. Like you get a plains that it basically becomes the Ancient Den. Essentially, just becomes Tundra. I guess it taps for white or blue. So with Urza, that's not a bad thing, right? Urza lets your artifacts tap for blue, so that's definitely an interaction that'd be favorable for anybody playing Commander. Breya, the Ethereum Shaper, of course, in artifacts. I think when one specialty land like Triumphs goes up, it drags the others up. And the Triumphs have been very good. I kind of wish I had bought more singles, especially with the Triumphs. Even over at Twiddler's place last night, I think he was doing New Capenna, and I was like, oh, God, that's another place where you can get Triumphs, right? Very nice. Okay, so let's take another look at another stock symbol. Okay, so this is another trading. When you're looking at these charts, folks, there's another we're just looking for shapes that recur, and we're looking to try and see if we can get some pattern recognition working for us. Good morning, Dual Brain. Support the Dual Brain channel. Going live with Mr. Ed, here this morning, the thinkingest man in the game. Thanks for joining us here this morning. All you good people. Fantastic humans joining us around the world to talk stocks, talk shop, and talk magic cards and looking at charts. A wedge. Now, we're not talking the type of wedgie you get in your pants when you're trying to put on 3 pairs of long johns and you're living up in the north, right? Not that kind of wedge, right? We're talking about a wedge pattern. Huckleberry, Magic Hound, Francis the Talking Mule. All right, a wedge pattern represents a tightening price movement between the support and the resistance lines. This can be either a rising wedge or a falling wedge. Unlike the triangle, the wedge doesn't have a horizontal trend line and is characterized by either 2 upward trend lines or 2 downward trend lines. For a downward wedge, it's that the price will break through the resistance. And for an upward wedge, the price is hypothesized, that being the key word here, folks, hypothesized, to break through the support. This means that the wedge is a reversal pattern as the breakout is opposite to the general trend. So here we've got ourselves some examples of a wedge here. We've got 2 this is a downward wedge. So we've got 2 trend lines, one on top of the other. We got a support line as well as a resistant line, sort of moving in tandem, but also kind of converging. And this is where the breakout will occur when the price projection is the height of the inverse head and shoulder pattern. So like this here, this line here, this is the price projection point. The height of the inverse head and shoulder pattern. So head and shoulder pattern is also another stock term that we're going to cover here. A double bottom. Ooh, double bottom. All right. I just want to talk about uh, these these charts so we can start to, because when you look at them, there's all kinds of ways to get confused and actually trying to know what you're looking at. But to give it enough time, look at enough charts and see enough patterns, you might start seeing some of these things for yourself. And you may see something I don't. Wedge is the best to go. Leverage on crypto. Easy money. All right. Just got to find the bottom. I'm going to be getting that wedge going in just a little bit. Nice to see you here this morning. Huckleberry the Magic Hound and Hot Dice. I hope you're hot out there because it's freezing where I'm at. Did a little show snuffling. No, that's snow shoveling. Mirror Enforcer. Speaking of affinity, this is definitely an affinity build around this in Pauper. Such an include. Mirrored in foils, $11. What was the one that gives your other artifact creatures, other artifacts affinity? There's another one that's even better. I can't remember the name of it, but I should revisit it because that was a hot card last year. It actually went quite up. Does anybody remember the name of it? It was another mirror. It gives your other Mycosynth Golem. Thank you, Tommy Siddons. Let's take a look at this one, and then we'll take a look at Mycosynth. Thank you, Tommy. Nice to see you here. Any of you guys who are sitting on the fence, haven't decided whether or not you're going to subscribe, do like Tommy Siddons and hit that subscribe button. Join us in the conversation here this morning where we're talking shop and we're looking at the prices of Pauper cards. Pauper. Okay, this thing is taking a tick up in price. This is almost like a point in time where you want to go through your bulk, right? Up to $2.50. It was as low as 25 simoleons, 75 cents, 50 cents. Yeah. So all the Pauper decks playing it. Is this because we need a reprint on this just yet? Well, the Masters Edition it would definitely say so. The foil from Mirrodin, $11. I like this art better. I really do. This chubby belly mirror guy. Affinity for artifacts. Let's take a look at this here chart here. This is like almost what I like to call a tabletop, right? Where we've got west to east action over here on this side, and then we've got a breakout to the north side, but then it hasn't really done much as far as having volatility goes. It's just been kind of flat. That's what I call a tabletop. And you can come up with your own words for this, but when people are talking about stock charts and they're like, this is a head and shoulders pattern, this is a flying wedge pattern, what does it mean? Well, it means many things to many people. As you might see, like this is another, there are so many different patterns. It's almost hard to place it because I don't really see any of these patterns here that we've been looking at this morning apply. This one just seems to have risen out of nowhere. We do have a set release from Modern Horizons 2 and another one here shortly after it. That could be a reason for its boost up in price. But again, the reason, folks, is it seems like this is a playable card. Morning, Tom Mitchell. Nice to see you here this morning. I miss the days of Frogmites, Mirror Enforcers, and Broodstar. Wouldn't this be a plateau or a step up? Yeah, I would think so. Looks like a plateau or a step up. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at the Mycosynth Golem because that one's been long forgotten. Mycosynth Golem. Another one to keep an eye on from Fifth Dawn. This thing was quite high. Oh, and it still is. $32. Okay. Let's have a look at the chart and see what this one's been doing. See anything you like? I don't know. Been softening. This card was up well up to the $40-$50 mark, and it seems like it's kind of taking a downward trend here now. Where is this going to converge? Hard to say, but if you were to take my guess, I would take another line and go from the top of this chart right here and sort of draw it like this and then see if we get some convergence. Benson, everybody's stopping in here. All the big boys stopping in to say hello, good morning, nice to see you. And then there's also this frequency potential here of this one. Like if you come down this way, this distance here, This could definitely be an indication of when the next leg up would be coming. According to this logic, we should see a price spike halfway through this year, maybe, if it's going to be anywhere. But let's keep an eye on it. All right, the foil version, I'm scared to look. I really am. $109. Ouch. It's for the short-term watch list. Might find a bottom. This is incredible. $109. It'll be secret layer before that next spike, all but guaranteed. That's a pretty good prediction there, Tommy. Right? We've got the secret layer police that will get out there and reprint your stuff before you can get it. What was this thing trending at before the new year? This card was super hot, super relevant, and super sought after. It still is. Salute to my nozzle. Definitely a card that has made lists last year. It's not a common, so it's going to be sitting on different lists, so it won't find its way on the popular list. But when I see cards with affinity, including the artifact lands, I can't hard but think of this guy. Dual Brain, Cardboard Sensor, Cardboard Splendor, Gaming Bob. Nice to see you here. Salute to my nozzle. The Color Commander Masters deck probably helped the spike. Well, let's see here. Karn Legacy Reforged, all Commander decks playing it. Definitely cards that decks that are playing it. Urza Chief Artificer, Zoldok the Void Gorger, Akum Dagsum, Memnarch. Memnarch's a big scary commander. He does some stuff. So the Mycosynth Golem, whenever I see some of these affinity cards, like the Mirror Enforcer, making its way onto the pauper list, we also see cards like Ancient Den, these artifact lands. These are two affinity cards, especially for pauper. It makes me think of the Mycosynth because the Mycosynth was such a hot card. It could be like a card like Mycosynth moving up in popularity could also drag these with it. But seeing a generous 13% increase in price, the Mirror Enforcer gets you $2.50. So like some of these, there's gold in common sometimes. Let's look at this card, Hydroblast. You know, I had T Freezy over at the house the other day, and we were going to do some trading because, as you might know, I'm decided to stay away from buy listing for the time being. I did one big trade over the New Year's where I got myself a Gaia's Cradle, and then I watched Dual Brains finance video the other day talking about blue chips, and I thought, whoa, I love it when I get it right. You know, cards like Gaia's Cradle, also blue chips. So I traded in a bunch of stuff on the bottom half of the collection, you know, like go through the bottom half. And the worst part is having to rebuy a card that you want to play with, but sometimes that happens. So I did trade in some of the stuff on the bottom end of the collection to get myself something a little higher end, like that Gaia's Cradle. But prior to that, I had a buddy over and we did some trades. He goes, "Well," I said, "Well, what are you looking for?" I was looking for a copy of Fury and an Arid Mesa. I got myself a Ragavan, and I asked him, "What are you looking for?" He says, "Pyroblast or Red Elemental Blast." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me! That's a common." He said, "Yeah." So and I said, "Okay, well, let's go. Which one do you want?" Because that was a card that I opened so many of in Revised. I got to remember, I started playing Magic around Revised. So we had stacks and stacks of Pyroblast, stacks and stacks of Red Elemental Blast, and stacks of Blue Elemental Blast. So I pulled out a couple of. He says, "I just want one that shuffles." No problem. So we went ahead and I grabbed the old school commons box and read and just sort of leafed through there. I was surprised because when we looked it up, of course, when you do trading, you gotta decide on where you guys are gonna uh, where we're gonna price the cards from. So pick a lane, right? But look at this Red Elemental Blast in Revised. It's worth a couple bucks. $2.19 USD. So that's like $3 Canadian, right? Almost four. But again, a card that we had so many of. I think I still have a few copies, but I don't want to get rid of them all because they are so playable. The interesting thing about this one, versus the pyroblast is the wording on it. So in some formats that matters, whereas this one says counter target blue spell or destroy target blue permanent. And if you look at the card like Hydroblast, so in Ice Age, shortly after the revised block came out, Ice Age came out with this card, Hydroblast and Pyroblast. But look at the wording on it. It's a little different. It says counter target spell if it's red. So this one essentially can target any spell. It doesn't have to be a red spell. It'll just fizzle if it's not. So if you want to trigger off of casting a spell, you can use the Hydroblast because it can counter target spell if it's red. It's got the conditional on the end of it. Whereas with the Pyroblast, or sorry, the red Elemental Blast and the blue Elemental Blast, the color of the card is important to actually have a valid target. So this one says counter target blue spell. So you can't target anything that isn't blue spell, and you can't target anything that isn't a blue permanent. Whereas the Pyroblast and the Hydroblast, some people may say are a little bit better simply because it says counter target spell if it's red. So you can actually use this to storm, even though it'll fizzle and go to the bin. There was some discussion that even just the way that the wording is, one can actually not be cast because you need a valid target. But look at this from the Ice Age block. Holy moly. Three out of all the blasts, is this the best one? It could be. Heed the lessons of our time. The forms of water may vote the land itself and hold captive the fires within. Gusta, Abbas daughter, Keldor, and Royal Mage. This could be the best of the blasts, I'm thinking. But if you want to play it in Commander, this is a great card because you've got different versions of it. You've got the red elemental blast, the blue elemental blast, you got the hydro blast, and the pyroblast. They similar cards, almost the exact same wording, except we've got the color at the front or the back, but it's definitely worth including in a Commander deck if you want a couple different versions of blast. Blasts are always good. If you're not playing blue, then you want to have the red blast and the pyroblast in there to fight those pesky blue mages who always try to counter your stuff. So what do we call this chart here? Look at this. Very interesting chart. It's been settling down in price. And I believe squarely that a card like this, including the red elemental blast and the blue elemental blast and all the blasts from this time period, even though they're common, they're going to, like, I hate to say it, they will receive reprints. Let's see, where was the last printing of this? Oh, Master Edition, Ice Age, Eternal Masters foil. Holy smokes, this uncommon, it was upshifted, is $19. Wow, that's the most expensive one. I think it's the only foil version out there. But I think this, as far as popper staples go, this could be something that's going to stick around on the radar for a while and could be about a $5 common at some point. And I think that's not unrealistic to think of. The colorless commander decks probably help the spike. Got to run through my bulk EMA then. Yes, that's a $20 uncommon. Ephemerate. This will break your femur. This will break a leg or ephemerate you. It's a bounce spell, right? All right. Speaking of bouncing, how do you make a waterbed bouncier? You add spring water. All right. What job did the frog have at the hotel? A bellhop, right? Speaking of bouncing, right? So a couple of bounce jokes for you here this morning. That's the type of card that if I'm not using, I love or buy list. Definitely. Okay, so this is a bounce card. I almost saw, when I saw this art for the first time, someone played it. I was like, that can't have been drawn by a human. It looks like it's been AI generated to me. Anyways, I thought it was done on a computer, but I guess not. I never liked the art on this card. It looked too digital for me, but maybe that's just me seeing, the lion and not seeing the field. This is a bounce spell. It's got many a use. Some of them are just to prevent your stuff from being targeted because you can flicker it. before somebody can remove it. Or if you're, excuse me, if you're playing this with something that has ETBs, then you really want to be running this, okay? Exile target creature controlled and return to the battlefield under its owner's control. It's got rebound. If you cast a spell from your hand, exile it as it resolves at the beginning of your next upkeep. You may cast this card from exile without paying its mana cost, so you get to do it twice. I got my butt handed to me in a modern event with a guy running this and the Coiling Oracle and the Ice Fang Quaddles. These snakes were just bouncing in and out, and Soul Herder. So where does it? This is played with a Soul Herder, I believe. Is it the Soul Herder? MTG Soul Herder. Already can't spell. Okay, it's one word. Soul Herder. There we go. Yeah, whenever a creature is exiled from the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on Soul Herder. And at the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So the whole Soul Herder, it gets bigger every time something gets exiled. So the more you blink things, and the more. Was this ever printed in common? I wonder. Modern Horizons, the Kaldheim Commander, Jumpstart. No, 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 no. Could you imagine? But it's actually competitive in Modern. People are blinking and thinking they're gonna. This is only 90 cents too. So the Soul Herder definitely love the art on Soul Herder. These poor little souls, right? This looks like the WotC employees running from the building after the big layoffs, right? Perhaps not. Ephemerate, $2.79. Seeing a tick up in price. Let's pull this chart back and take a look here. I can't believe it. Like, look at this. Look at this card go. It's quite good. We got a top here, and then a little bottom at Broham's War. Then it's seen at $3 to $5, and then over to. I think I'm sitting on a few copies of this. I know I must have to, but it almost like this price memory. I'm like, it's just a bulk common, but it's good. It's a $3 common. That's like $5 Canadian. Not too bad. Not to be confused with effeminate. Did that Spelunker guy buy up? Did that Spelunker guy spike up at all? The Black Delver, or are we calling? Or are we calling it? Which one? Like the card Spelunking? What's the name of the card? I'll look it up here this morning. Can someone tell me, a newbie, what exactly changing the rarity does? Oh, I can explain that. So, for example, let's take a card like Brainstorm. So let's go back to Ice Age. Let's go back to this. Brainstorm's a pretty good example for this. Okay, so here's a card from Ice Age, Brainstorm, the original printing of it. Okay, so this was originally printed at Common. So this was a common from Ice Age, and when we were playing this set, we had all kinds of these Brainstorms going around. They were easy to come by, and it had this great ability on it: instant speed, draw 3 cards, then put back 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. So that didn't seem too busted because there wasn't a lot of ways to get a ton of value out of this. It was like I think Brainstorm was printed as a cover up for Ancestral Recall, because Ancestral Recall was on the reserve list and it was like 1 blue, just draw 3 cards. So they're like, well, we can't do that again. That's too darn good. So, like, speaking of Pauper and speaking of commons, this is one of the original 1 blue, draw 3 spells. Okay, so it's been printed as far back as Ice Age. We couldn't have Ancestral Recall, so we printed a common in the Ice Age block that right now it costs you $1.79 for this. Okay, so then along cometh different card formats and new printings like Jace, the Mind Sculptor, and cards with Miracle. Whereas if you were to be able to manipulate the top card of your library, and then that would be the next card you draw, a card like that came later, many sets later. So a card like this became very good when you can manipulate the top card of your library, and then the first card you draw each turn becomes Miracle. Becomes very important to set up the top of your deck. Okay. Also, with cards like Force of Will that were printed in alliances, which came a little later. The Brainstorm was good because it could help you go get that blue card, or it could just help you go get that Force of Will, or that Counterspell. So very good. Now, that was printed in common. So once a common, always a common, except if it gets reprinted. Now, in the Pauper format, you're only allowed to play commons. They're Our Splendor. So once a common, always a common. So even though it gets reprinted in many other sets, so now because it's a good card, Wizards go, well, that card's too good to be printed as a common. We have to upshift it to uncommon because now we printed it once as a common. It's been up now. Now, when you look at some of these other printings of it, this one has been reprinted as a rare. This version has been reprinted as a mystical archive, and so on and so forth. And I think in some of the cases, it has also been printed on the uncommon slot, like say in the Masters, Eternal Masters. I think that was also in the uncommon slot. Brainstorm also printed, I believe, in the Mercadian Mass block. So what happens is it always stays in Pauper because it was once printed as a common. So that's what happens. But when they shift it up from common to uncommon, it creates a scarcity because there's not as many printings of it in the new sets. And that's where you can see some of these other copies of Brainstorm fetching anywhere from $8. If you go to the Mercadian Mass foil version, here's a rare. I think it was, what was it printed here? This is also printed in common, but a foil version of it. So this is definitely an expensive. I think this is the most expensive version of Brainstorm. It's the $505 common foil version. So when it gets shift up in rarity, then it's another way of adding it to a set without saturating the set. But then again, it can also go the other way. Sometimes cards that were mythic rare get downshifted to just rare, and I hope that explains it. And then things go the other way because now all of a sudden there are more. So you upshift it in rarity to make it a little more scarce and make it cost a little bit more, but it's still always available in Pauper. If you downshift it in rarity, if it was printed as a rare first and then it got downshifted in a new set to uncommon, then it usually drags the price down of some of the other ones. Except if you get some of these outliers like this Mercadian Mass foil. And we got another copy of an artifact land here. Of course, Affinity driving Pauper. It's always going to be good. Let's take a look at this. This is the one I ran in Legacy, right? Because you could run this in Painter Servant. Oh, Millmaster wanted to know about 2 cards. Okay, Brainstorm is a full... Let's read your comment here, friend. Brainstorm is a fun card to collect, one of every printing of. Would also recommend Stone Rain and Swords. Brody, it's been a while. Oh, my cousin Jimmy's here. Nice. I'm working from home during the snowstorm, and my old buddy Brody is back and streaming. That's right, the working man for the working man, just like you, doing the best that I can. I got a question for you. Why wouldn't the shrimp share his treasure? Because he was a little shellfish, all right? And what time does a duck wake up? At the quack of dawn. This is a... If you're up at the quack of dawn, if you're a duck and you're up at the quack of dawn, you can catch me on the morning show. I don't know about swords. They made several serialized ones, number 295 to be example. Okay, let's check it out. Let's check out this chart. The Ancient Den, the artifact lands. If I was to buy them, I would go to the Mirrodin. Whoa, the Mirrodin is again the cheapest version. The foil version is $27. But look at this one here. This is $2.35. I would say good to have a couple. at least a play set of each. This is almost like real estate, like Snowland. You can never go too bad running a couple of these into the collection for just a couple of bucks. Because if you ever find yourself wanting to play Pauper, then you may want to have these in your arsenal. It's Magic is like that. Sometimes cards that you just put away and forget about become really good because you either meet a new play group or somebody has a new deck that you actually want to try. So having these little pieces of real estate, I myself keep a lands box where I've got all sort of my non-basic lands organized into rares, uncommons, and commons. So just in case I ever want to whip out a pauper deck, I've got some of these cheaper staples in there. It's also playable in Legacy. So if you find anything playable in Legacy myself, I like to keep these. Moxman says, I've kept my artifact lands. I kept my artifact lands figure lands. I hate to sell and replace, better to hold them as you never have to rebuy them again. I'm the same mindset. I was getting into playing Legacy right after I got out of Type 1 and 2 and I got back into Magic and then I had to relearn all these formats. These were cards that everybody was playing modern, so I really wanted to play some of the older stuff. So I picked up some of these artifact lands from Mirrodin, and like you say there, you just if you they're cheap enough, if you get them once, you'll never have to get them again. And it's something that I myself personally, not financially advising you here, but it's something that original from the Mirrodin block will tend to always have some play value. These actually look quite bullish, if you ask me. Let's look at the chart here. Long term, a $2 card. If you ever want to see, that's the other thing about Magic is you never know who you're going to meet. And I meet some great, amazing people in the world of Magic the Gathering, and it's kind of a shame to say, well, what do you play? And then they say, oh, I play Pauper, and say, well, I don't have a deck. But if you meet some interesting people in a play group and you want to play with them, then having the Pauper staples will get you into it. Unfortunately, during the Mirrodin era, I was all Mitgo. Oh, super organized, but the boxes, my Mirrodin Commons missing. I don't want to buy these again. I hate to go looking for them. You know, why is this new? Why is this a few bucks? Thought they were banned in Pauper. Let's see here. Legal in Pauper. No, banned in Modern, Benson. Banned in Modern because of Modern affinity. They're still eligible in Pauper. I sort of thought the same thing too. I sort of thought the same thing too. I thought they were banned in Legacy for a while, but I haven't played them in a little bit. What type of it's reality, right? What kind of tea is hard to swallow? Reality. Reality. What do you get from a pampered cow? You get spoiled milk. All right, we got the dust to dust. This is an interesting card. Let's take a look at it real quick here. Artifacts. Remove 2 artifacts from the game. A sorcery. This is an uncommon from Fifth Dawn, but also I think we saw it in the dark. Yes. This is an art that I've definitely passed over enough times. This is some Drew Tucker art. This watercolor, where washed out, watery, colory art here. Exile 2 card target artifacts. So here's another example of a card that was upshifted. Dust to Dust, printed as common in the dark. It's $9. Holy smokes! So what's a pack of the dark at now? $80. This thing seems to be. Look at the chart on this fun card. Holy smokes, this thing's been moving. I'll have to keep an eye on this one. Where are we at here? 2021, early 2022. This thing was not more than $1. And then, like, you could have done really well in the dark here, just collecting them. So, like, here's a $10 common out of a pack of the dark. Here we go. Here's another. Let's take a look at this. This is a classic cup and handle pattern right here. Cup and handle. Let's get a little bit bigger of a pen here so Brody can draw it. The cup and handle pattern here, this is a very bullish type of an indicator. And then here's the handle. So when we were looking at our stock chart symbols or patterns. Earlier this week we discussed the cup and handle, and it just looks like this, right? It's got like a cup and then a little handle. That's a bullish indicator. And now I think it's affirming the cup and handle pattern because it's still going higher. So that is right here. Nice bullish indicator of the cup and handle. And then the chart actually confirming that, showing us that it's going higher. And how high will this go? Hard to know. But if this could be what's pushing up the 5th edition version of it, because this one's a little bit cheaper, is it? Yes, 927. Actually, it's not. Oh, see, now shifted to uncommon. So we got a common at $9 and then shifted to uncommon. And it's still holding some value. Shoot, I'm looking at my M&M for a foil brainstorm right now, right? Yes. The foil brainstorm for Eternal Masters. I got a box of Eternal Masters just the other day. I'm going to sit on that for a while. And what else have we got here? A longbow. Viridian longbow. Equipped creature has tap. This creature deals a damage to any target. 3 to attach it. So this is just like a pinger. This is the pinger. This is makes a sorcerer out of any card you want. Huh. Okay. Well, more pauper play. What's small and red and has a rough voice? A horseradish. This Viridian longbow. I'm going to take a look at this. Interestingly enough. Well, those are your movers and the shakers for the day. I got one more article for you folks this morning. And a hush falls over the crowd. Folks, thanks for joining me. It's Brody here on the morning show. Do you like tracking the prices of Magic cards? Is there enough information out there, or is there just too much darn information? Let me do it for you. I'm here on the morning show. I love looking at charts, taking a look at some patterns, seeing if we can deduce something. Do you see something I don't? Let me know. What have we missed here on the show? I love to hear from you folks, but hush falls over the crowd. I got one quick new article for you folks who are tuning in and enjoying the morning. The working man has to get off to work. Yes, it's the working man for the working man. Brody, wherever you are, if you're at work, if you're doing your part today, I want to thank you for tuning in. Let's get to one more article about a new Hushbringer variant that has been printed. And this is exactly what I thought the first time I saw this card. So a hush falls over the crowd. Mercadian Mask got some good comments. An infect piece. Longbow kills infect builds. Alrighty, let's take a look. We recently talked about the handful of cards from Murders at Karlov Manor that function rather similar to cards in the past. In some cases, such as the Long Goodbye, the newer version is strictly better than the old version, which in this case is Eliminate. However, there are plenty of other examples of new spoilers that have taken away designs from past cards and modified them into unique ways. For example, Analyze the Pollen has a similar function to Traverse the Ulvenwald, card I like to play. But different conditions have to be met to maximize the card. So today we're talking about a recently revealed card that's similar. This card's pretty close to Hushbringer and its ability to stop certain enters the battlefield effects. However, there are some key differences that may help put the newer version on top. This is the Thrall, right? Here, getting some Thrall support. If you guys championing the channel, this is the Doorkeeper Thrall. So we finally getting some more Thrall support. Murray Cooper, how you doing, buddy? I've had a pauper deck for a decade, played it like twice. Thrall boys, yes. I'm pretty thrilled about this one, right? Finally, we're getting some Thrall support, and I think and eventually we're going to get a decent Angrath. Okay, we haven't had a decent Angrath creature. I'm not talking on Angrath Planeswalker. Something I really want to see is a decent Minotaur. Either an Angrath or a half decent Minotaur that's like really good. Like make a Ragavan version of a Minotaur or something that good, and then we'll see some more reserve lifts cards start to move upwards. So the Doorkeeper Thrall has flash. It's a 1/2. It's flying, so it's got pretty much the same stats as the Hushbringer. Artifacts and creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. No Help answered questions with a mix of hissing drool. So it's like got the Torpor Orb effect on it, but it's not just creatures, it's artifacts and creatures. So the Thrall Boy really putting it on top. And the ability to stop certain enters the battlefield card effects, however, there are some key differences that may help put the newer version at the top of the list. The Doorkeeper Thrall is our latest creature with a built-in Torpor Orb effect. Yes, these effects can be quite strong in the right matchup. Stopping enters the battlefield effects from creature-heavy decks, and unlike Hushbringer, the Doorkeeper does not interact with death triggers. Well, but what the hell? The game's absolutely noteworthy. By far, the most important aspect of this card is the Flash ability, and we're not talking like Flash the dual brain shirt, Flash. Part of the issue with a previous card like Hushbringer, especially an EDH setting in, is that your opponents would not know about it and simply avoid playing into it. Thanks to Flash, it's a key mechanic that's quite likely you'll be able to respond to something very impactful and essentially force your opponent to have wasted their mana. I'm really hey, MTG Hillbilly, how you doing? All right. In EGH, two of the most played cards are Dockside Extortionist and Thassa's Oracle to get completely shut down by the Torpor or the Doorkeeper Thrall. I'm starting to play a stacks piece. I got a couple of folks that play the Thassa's combo into CEDH. Imperial Recruiter can also be devastating as well, but the Flash ability is something I want to get this Doorkeeper Thrall. I like it. What do you call MTG Hillbilly? What do you call a hippie's wife? Mrs. Hippie. All right, let's take a look. Keep rolling down, talking about the Hushbringer. This is a great stacks piece, right? You can flash it in. It's a flyer, it's a body, it's a blocker. It's not got an ETB, but it stops the ETBs. And outside of CEDH, there are plenty of haymakers that the Doorkeeper Thrall can stop. Casting this in response to a Crater Hoop Behemoth or an Avenger of Zendikar, for instance, can potentially save the whole table at once. Surprise factor from this type of effect cannot be overstated, since your opponents may not have the luxury of being able to simply kill it before resolving a spell with an impactful or triggered ability. So it turns the combos off, turns off the One Ring protection. Very hilarious. So it's something that I hate the One Ring. I love it. That's hilarious. Okay, so this is the Doorkeeper Thrall. Yeah, I think the Thrall build is going to be coming, right? It's just going to be very slow to get the support for the Thralls. But those of you holding the Thrall Champion on the reserve list is not a bad way to start your day. If you ever want to build Thrall Tribal, it might take us a few more years to get there. But hey, all us didgeridoo players are still waiting on some decent Minotaurs. All right, in Pioneer Modern, there's also some potential opportunities for this card to mess with specific archetypes. Starting with Modern, one interaction that's worth looking at for this ability is to shut off the protection from the One Ring. This is another added benefit to the Doorkeeper Thrall. As somebody who doesn't own the One Ring, I'm more apt to pick up a copy artifact or just this Thrall to shut it down, because what's better than playing the One Ring is copying your opponent's One Ring or just stopping the One Ring altogether. As being able to shut off artifact triggered abilities from entering play can be a big deal if you're aggressive enough. This can completely slant a race in your favor. While a little less popular nowadays, is also a decent card against Colossus Hammer decks. Yes, Hammer Time will definitely be shut down with the Sigarda's aid, letting you attach equipment as though it comes into play. So also potential to see it in Modern. I think this is actually going to see some Modern play. It might be good enough. All right, the Hammer Tech archetype, at least in a sideboard, right? The Thrall, let's keep an eye on it. We might see a Thrall in how do we short the One Ring, right? All right. Hushbringer sometimes sees play in Hammer Time as it is, helping against Solitude and Primeval Titan decks. Negating the One Ring's protection clause would be useful as well, but the unfavorable interaction with the Colossus Hammer makes it the point moot, or a non-bow, as we like to say, not to mention other white-based decks like Helia the Sun Crown Hunter combo and Abiding Grace mid-range will rely much on their own triggered abilities, making this a bit of a niche card. Still, this card is powerful enough to keep an eye on, and it doesn't have a great home. All right. The Thrall Boy. Like it. Well, this is your friend, Brody Alfonso. Remember,
buy low, sell high, that's my motto. I may just quit my job at the power plant and become a full-time stock market guy.
all right, remember to buy low and sell high. That's what I always say. And one day, you too may be able to quit your job at the bicycle shop and become a full-time Magic the Gathering stock market guy. I want to thank all of you folks for tuning in. This has been the best thing that's going to happen to me all day. It can only get worse from here. No. Peace, love, and happiness to anyone tuning in on the channel. Thanks again for joining me. Let's let Ron Burgundy tune us out with a little bit of jazz flute here this morning. It's the morning show. If you like tracking the prices of Magic cards, or maybe it's just too overwhelming, you can always tune in and let me do it for you. I appreciate each and every one of you. Dual Brain, Moxman, Millmaster, Cardboard Splendor, Tommy Siddons, Benson. Oh, Twiddler's Place. We had a great show. The Millmaster, Michael Superbacker, my good friend, Benson, Murray Cooper. A lot of folks. MTG Gaming Bob in the house, Cosmic Seeds, Mr. Superbacker having my back here this morning, Johan Matuzzi. We'll talk to you again next time. The Huckleberry Magic Hound. Don't forget about this guy and the hot dice. Keyboard Splendor. Thanks, buddy.